All right, so before you start even shading, I would think about what areas are going to be darker in general, what areas are going to be lighter, and of course you're going to be flipping and changing in addition to that. And for some of you, shading for form. So for me, it's kind of hard to see, but there's like a big tree here. It's going to be darker overall. Some of you have some of my darkest values in that location. Then I have this Eastern peace symbol to represent inner peace on top with some other circles for divisions. All right, in the distance, there are mountains, and I have some trees that are going to be like medium dark, and there's a little like river that runs through it. So in general, I'm thinking the trees are going to be my darkest values, but this one's going to be the darkest. So when I think of shading with range of value and fading out, I'm going to fade from really, really dark to probably just medium. And there's not going to be any white paper showing through in the tree necessarily. But in the sky, I want it to be lighter in general. So my range of value in the sky is probably going to be light medium to really light, or really light just fading into the white paper. So you are going to want some white paper showing through in certain areas for contrast. So think about that stuff before you start. The other thing that you might want to consider is, does it matter which way I'm fading out? For some of you, it doesn't matter at all. For some of you, you might want it fading out all in the same direction. Some of you, it can be haphazard. It can be random. So for me, it doesn't really matter. And then just thinking ahead towards the very end stages of my project, the last third of the time, I'm going to go back and add some texture. So little tiny details that need to be added on top of your shading, you're going to wait. Because towards the end, you're going to get a blender or a torsion to kind of smooth out some of the bigger areas. But honestly, I wouldn't even touch a blender in this area, because the blender is not going to stay as precise as what I currently have. So as I was shading, I was kind of thinking like, all right, so if I have the tip of the tree, but then the symbol overlaps, then I want two values to be different. And I would make sure I have something underneath my hand. And I'm going to start, for some of you, like I started on the hard part, like I just want to get it done, and now I regret doing all those tiny little angles because it's a lot of refining to do. First, like some of you might want to start in an easy part. So I'd move from easy to complex. If you're like, oh, I don't know, like I just don't know where to start. Pick an easy spot and just start. I wanted to talk about refining as you go, so I'm picking my hardest part to demonstrate. Okay, so something underneath your hand all the time. Oh, other thing, I'm going to work from top corner and working down so that I'm not smudging. Like, I don't want to have to refine this thing when it's all said and done. Like, I don't want to have to touch it when I'm done. Like, it's done. So keeping that in mind, I'm working, because I'm right-handed, I'm working from left to right. It doesn't matter if you have something under your hand, but just in my head, I'm like, that's less refining I'll have to do. The other thing for the darkest parts or tiny detail, tiny little corners, little angles, you're probably going to have to use mechanical pencil, like to get some refining happening as you go. I'm video recording, sorry about that. Okay. So here where the tree is really, really dark, then I have this division. Hello?
Hi.
I'm sorry? Yep. Okay, thank you. Nadia, you're going home. All right. So if I wanted to flip this, if the tree's really dark right here, then and I want my sky to be lighter, then in this part where it flips, then I would kind of like create a slightly darker outline where it's going to fade down. So I'm refining from the very beginning, circular motion, fading down. Then if this is my negative space back here, and this part of the tree is actually going to be lighter, like medium, lighter in general, then back here, I might want to go slightly darker in that little corner. So I'm going to use mechanical pencil to get into that little corner. And I fade out with my mechanical so I don't have to touch it with the blender or the pencil. And then definitely fade back out. And then this is a slightly larger area. Let me refine that piece right there. So refine as you go, refine as you go. So then I would hold my pencil more horizontally so I can use the whole side of the graphite in a larger area and adjust my pressure. So it's up to you if you want to use, I just use like 6B all the time. Some people like to flip and change pencils. I would just adjust my pressure. And then if it doesn't look smooth, I would make it comfortable for your arm to get into areas for craftsmanship. So move the paper so it's comfortable for your arm. So you can see that, okay. To then add another layer in a multiple direction, or to actually kind of fade out. Okay. So then if this background part is lighter here, then I'm going to go slightly darker, but still not going as dark as what the tree is. So you have to ask yourself, in general, what range of value, but then what value is it going to be touching before you start shading? And then if you're adding texture, that's going to happen on top of your value. And for some of you, if it's texture in a large area, like I have someone doing like feathers or something, like there's a lot of texture in the feathers, well then they're going to shade for value, shade for form, and then add the texture on top. So you're kind of working back in with those small details on top. All right, so if we have met, then you're going to start shading. Remember, you're trying to get rid of your outlines. So, before you start, you have kneaded eraser, little gray eraser. You get one for this project. Keep it off the floor. It's going to pick up hair and anything else on the floor. I wouldn't play with it too much because the oils on your hand have bacteria in them, and then this becomes a bacteria ball. But let's say I got too dark in a location. Like in here, I feel like I want a little more range of value. I can use it to lighten my lines, which many of you, if you drew heavy and dark, need to do before you start because we don't want to see the outlines. It's part of your grade. No outlines showing. And then if I got too dark, like in this location, I could like manipulate this thing into a little nub to then blot out some value. So if you get too dark in a location, I would say use your kneaded eraser. It's not good for actually erasing. It's only good for lifting graphite off, but it won't take it away entirely. So it's not good for actually like wanting to fully erase. You're just using it to lift out and lighten your lines. So this is going to go in your baggie so that you don't lose it when you're not using it. All right, go ahead and begin if you're ready to go. If not, I'll meet with you right before you start.